Living out in Klipspruit West in Soweto. The purpose of that particular visit was for him to be briefed by the Zonal Committee leadership, and the issues primarily revolve around the Klip River wetlands, pollution from industrial as well as urban sources, including acid mine drainage, industrial runoff, as well as sewage treatment plant discharges. SABC News reporter Samkele Maseko has been following that story and joins me now in studio for the latest update. So Samkele, not long ago, you were with the president in Klipspruit West of Soweto. What was the purpose of that visit? Before we get to some of his sentiments about the developments politically in the country.
His purpose with that particular visit to that Klipspruit Ward 11 branch, which is his branch, by the way, which encompasses Soweto, where he grew up and is from, is essentially the ANC's political program of political education within the structures of the ANC, where all leaders of the party go back to their branches to make sure that there's political education taking place within their branches, that they all go through the coursework that has been defined by the ANC's political school, those particular 5 modules, before any branch can go to a BGGM where it will elect a leader or leadership of that particular branch to nominate any delegates to go to a regional, to a provincial conference or to a national conference of the ANC. So they're essentially going back to the basic unit of the organization, which is what encompasses and makes the African National Congress to be this mass-based organization that it is. So not only Cyril Ramaphosa was at his branch today, Nomvula Mokonyane was also out in Mogale City in her own branch as well today.
So back to principles it is. But what does this say here about him having been, briefed about issues that are affecting some of the areas in Klip River, like your acid mine drainage, industrial runoff, and other sewage treatment, sewage waste that actually is discharged into nearby communities?
It's been very clear that the city of Johannesburg must be brought back to its former glory, saying that he's very unhappy. He was embarrassed during the meeting of the G20 International Relations Ministers in South Africa out at Nasrec Expo Center, looking at the state of Johannesburg, how vegetation is not being done, with grass not being cut across the city, how refuse is not being collected. He was at a pick-it-up facility today. It did look relatively clean around that particular Avalon Klipfontein area today when he was there, and it essentially spoke about how the executive mayor of the city of Joburg and regional chairperson Dada Morero has been steering the ship with the government of a local unity and ultimately also with the leadership of the African National Congress in trying to revive the inner city, in trying to make sure that potholes are closed within those roads that are in the ambit of the Johannesburg Roads Agency, and making sure that street lights are working across the city, and that street lights and also the robots are also working across the city, and they are having a very huge backlog when it comes to infrastructure development within the city of Johannesburg. Speaking to the executive mayor, also regional chair, Dada Morero, he says that they've got about a backlog of about 200 billion rands when it comes to infrastructure within the city, and the bulk of that infrastructure, particularly pertaining to the bulk infrastructure of water provision within the city of Johannesburg.
So those resolutions, Samkele, what happens to them? And then talk to us about, of course, the sentiments he made in relation, I suppose, in response to what the DA has been pushing forward about them not voting for the budget.
It was very clear, particularly on that issue of the Democratic Alliance, on the DA not voting for the fiscal framework of the budget of the country and ultimately the budget of the country, and then within that 30-day reprieve that has been granted by Parliament for political formations to work with the Treasury in trying to find out alternative ways of trying to fit that backlog of about 13.5
So what are you saying, Samkele? Are we not going to see a VAT increment on the 31st? Parliament or Treasury still needs to report back to National Assembly about those recommendations as well as conditions that were tabled by the other parties.
Political formations, also with the Finance Committee within Parliament, will receive recommendations and will receive proposals from political formations on how to close that deficit of about 14 billion rands that was meant to be covered by the VAT increase of 2%, which was budgeted for by the Finance Department and the Tax Department within Treasury in working with the Minister of Finance in Okotongwan. That was later revised to 0.5%, which has now since also been negotiated at this point in time not to increase on the 1st of May.
Okay.
So this 30-day reprieve is to find ways of finding that shortfall amount of about 15 billion rands in the South African fiscal framework budget.
All right. All right. So you can confirm this now.
That will mean you and I, on the 1st of May, does not get affected by a 0.5% of value-added tax.
So why are companies already sending some of their subscribers?
They are sending those particular messages at this point in time because the fiscal framework was adopted,
yes,
but there has been no communique that has been sent out that do not increase VAT by 0.5% until this 30-day period is concluded. Then ultimately the Minister of Finance and Parliament will then, and Treasury will then come out and say, no, we found ways and means of covering this debt shortfall of about 15 billion rands. That does not mean that there must be a 0.5 VAT increase. That is how I understood it to be when the president of the ANC and president of the country was clarifying this particular point when we asked him on the failure of John Steenhuisen's Blue Party to pass this particular budget fiscal framework of the country. Speaking about blue, our color in the background is blue.
Samgelo, thank you so much for clarity, so much clarity, because this has been a question that has actually, sent shockwaves in the country. In fact, a lot of concerns about what actually happens come the 1st of May. So we are yet to see what actually does transpire come the 1st of May. That is SABC News senior political reporter right here in studio with me, Samkele Maseko.